And so, whereas in the Christian understanding presuppositionalism, you're actually saying that because you can, in a sense, have a foundation that gives you a foundation for language, gives you a foundation for logic, it's the implicit reasonableness of the universe. In a sense, it's a very powerful apologetic in that sense. Even if you don't agree with it or you don't understand it yet, that's fine. But it's giving the possibility. Whereas Kant, in the sense, his transcendentalism is vulnerable and it's criticised heavily because it was assuming, we mentioned in a previous video, we had P.F. Strawson in the 1960s, late 1950s, 1960s, who he's called a neo-Kantian, because most neo-Kantians don't want to go with Kant with this psychological approach, because that's too much to assume about that every human being of every culture, no matter where they are on the planet, have the same faculties of reason and they derive those categories, and those categories are shared. That seems very unsafe on Kant's own basis, and not. There's many people who take issue with his derivation of these categories, his deductions, because he was saying he was deducing these transcendental deductions, coming to these categories, and a lot of philosophers don't accept that, and so, but Christian transcendentalism, that key thought there is that it's that reconciliation of the particular and the universal in the Trinity that gives you a foundation for philosophy. And so even though, yes, I've managed to break the hour here, even though I've gone on for this hour, that I think there's so many. It's so important to get grasp of these terms, of evidentialism, of classical apologetics, that's going that idea of classical Greek, that great classical age of Greek thought that was rediscovered in the Renaissance. So it's not as if that's irrelevant. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like these great people that's why people say, why are we so concerned about Greece, ancient Greece? It's because ancient Greek, in the sense, the Renaissance was considered the rediscovery of the Greek humanism of that great period, with in the middle of this medieval hegemony of Catholicism. That's a little bit that's quite a mischaracterization, I think. People make much more of the intellectual hegemony, because there was plenty of stuff going on within the lower realms of the Catholic structure. And once you got outside of the papal intrigue and political and social hegemony of that, there was lots and lots and lots of remarkable work going on within the Catholic scientists, and it was a very fertile period. The university came out with the patronage of the Catholic Church. I'm a Protestant, and I'm proud to be a Protestant. I'll always be a Protestant. I don't accept the sort of the Catholic principle of a pope, the bridge between man and God. That to me is are we allowed to use the word abomination? That's a horrible sort of idea that that you have this bridge between man and God. Jesus is the bridge between man and God, and so, but the intellectual heritage of that came through from the Catholic patronage and the development of the idea of the university these are all great things that happened within there. Now the Reformation came along, and in one sense, what the Reformation was doing was purging, if you like, sort of like the influence of paganism within Christian theology and Christian thought, and trying to get back to what are the scriptures saying? What are the principles that are here? What are the let's just get rid of the philosophical baggage and saying, what is a Christian understanding? And so that's why, in a sense, when I'm saying I'm trying to understand what it is that makes a philosophy Christian. That's why I engage with Reformed thought so much, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to rediscover, reforming, Reformation. And the immediate impact of the Reformation it was the scientific revolution. That's the thing. The scientific revolution flowed out of the freedom that resulted from the Reformation, breaking the Catholic hegemonical, the great Catholic papal hegemonies that wanted to try and intellectually strangle innovation. And so that's one of the things that Rorty picks up in his, when I was talking at the start of the talk about when he was saying that Western civilization owes so much, even though he called himself a secular humanist, he said it owes so much. Unless you had the intellectual engine in the sense of the Reformation, and the Reformation understanding of the world, of God putting laws and principles in the world that are not arbitrary but they're fixed. If you like, that sort of concept, it was giving a justification for the concept of natural law. And so even Rorty was prepared to say that all this flowed out of this sort of understanding, of a particular Christian understanding that allowed science to flourish in that sort of environment. Now, and that's the thing. Even when you get to to the 19th century and the higher critical movements, but in a sense, what we might call the lower critical movement, where people were looking at the science of literary criticism, and that's been so valuable. The higher critics were doing something rather different, and the form critics were doing something different. But the idea that you look at the various disciplines connected with texts, and that you apply it to the biblical texts, and that's led to an improvement and a understanding of of creating a more of a better biblical text, and understanding which bits have been pushed in and added in, or the variations, be it the different different textual traditions from various parts of the world and different generations, and it helps understand why are there differences, why are there variations, are they significant, are they not significant, which ones are more reliable. And so all these the modern scientific methods, this is one of the things I'm saying here, very important, is that the modern scientific method and the idea of engineering, technology, of system, of order, of laws, of principles, they're all flowed out of a Reformation understanding. They didn't flow out of, say, a pagan understanding, the ancient Greek understanding. There was certain principle, because the ancient Greek philosophy, the thing is, it was very teleological, and that's why, say, in Aristotelism, which became baptized in Christian terminology in Aquinas, it didn't, although it was very fruitful in, particularly in the artistic sort of disciplines and some of the other humanities. It was very productive, and you've got some great and in ancient Greek culture itself, you've got great tragedies and poetry, but in natural science in particular, perhaps with the exception of medicine, because in a sense biology by its nature is used to be a more teleological sort of understanding that things grow from one thing to another. So there seemed to be in biology with biology could fit much easier with a teleological view. Something like natural chemistry or physics doesn't. It's frustrated when people try and impose teleological on those sorts of disciplines. So that's why when the Reformation appeared, which emphasised laws and principles, and the principle that God put natural laws in there, and that God honours those natural laws, he doesn't arbitrarily change them. That's one of the key distinctive differences between, say, a Christian understanding and an Islamic understanding, is that whereas Allah can arbitrarily change things, the Lord of the Bible, the God of the Bible, actually says, I'm committed to these principles, and I'm making a covenant with the day and the night, with the earth and heaven and earth, and as long as seed time and harvest go, there are certain principles. He guarantees those principles. And I think in my in my book, there's points where I bring out those different scriptures, those different times where the Lord commits this order. You see it throughout sort of history. And so I think that's really, I think that gives a nice multifaceted idea of the importance of apologetics and its interaction with philosophy, its interaction with science. And it's a very important sort of like part. The apologists, the idea of sort of like of an apologist is really to sort of when you get a challenge, when you get like an intellectual challenge. One of my personal motivations for becoming so engaged with philosophy was because I wanted to. I always had this internal, because I was a scientist and an engineer, and still am. I'm a software engineer by trade, and I hope to be doing more and more philosophy as time goes on. But that's in a sense my day job. But it's like if you're in that sort of environment, and I became a believer. I thought, is surely your faith must be reasonable. Is it reasonable? Is it defensible? Is it intellectually defensible, or do you have to suspend your normal, sensible life and then go into this strange world of faith? And so that's what's always motivated me, and I'm glad in the sense to get to this point in my life, and I wanted to help other people as well be able to defend themselves intellectually. That, yes, their faith is intellectually defensible. And the great thing about Soke, in a sense, about people who become very, very engaged in apologetics, is that or have an apologetic. They might not be an apologist, but they've got like an apologetic. What word am I looking for? They've got like an apologetic interest in their work, and their work's useful to apologists. And you think of the work of Alvin Plantinga, the philosopher Alvin Plantinga. He is not what you would call a Christian apologist, but there are apologetic applications of his work because he so rigorously, great logician who so picks apart so many different arguments that, in a sense, that we're trying to deconstruct the theistic view and specifically the Christian view as well. And he just basically says that what you're claiming for your arguments, you're not getting there. You're not proving your case. And so that's why apologetics is so valuable, because it really helps you understand what are the basic assumptions, what are the basic presuppositions, what people are using, what are the axioms they're using, if they're relying on. One of the interesting things we're going to be doing is actually giving criticisms of, say, the classical view, the evidential view, the hypothetical sort of like view, the subjective apologetic view. In some ways, I think you can slice and dice those. Very philosophers have done that, particularly with sort of teleological, cosmological arguments. They're terrible, a terrible logical quality about those arguments. They're very easy to slice and dice. Intelligent design is, you can slice and dice it. It doesn't mean that intelligent design isn't something that's intuitively useful and it's if you like a wonderful devotional. It's got a devotional application, but as a logical argument to try and demonstrate the existence of God, the teleological, cosmological arguments are terrible arguments. They just are, and so it doesn't mean they're without value. They're just not. They just haven't got a good logical quality when you're arguing to try and argue for justify the existence of God, or to try and show that God's logically necessary. Whereas the transcendental argument is trying to show you that it's objectively provable that God exists. It's not, it's something logic. The transcendental logic is attempting to show, yes, without God there can be no understandability. There's no possibility of understanding anything at all. It's a very powerful argument. That we'll be looking at Van Til, and it's a very, very powerful argument. Okay, so I've managed to burn up 1 hour 20 minutes here. But I think there's a lot in it. I think apologetics is so enormous, and it was very much a a foundational sort of part, in a sense. It was part of the introduction to try and bring all these different terms in, and it is, and some of these will be developed in much more detail throughout the book, and the critiques are developed much more interesting throughout the book. But you can see the importance of it. You can see the importance of it scientifically. You can see the importance of it, sort of, if you like, metaphysically, epistemologically, the understanding, and ethically. Because if there's no God, I'm perfectly agree. If there's no God, let's eat, drink, and be merry. I nearly killed myself with 3 years of between 17 and 21, just party all the time, smoke, drugs, whatever. Because you think, that's the way you live life, and you play music and stuff all the time. But that's the problem. 4 years of that, I nearly killed myself. And so, if eat, drink, and be merry is inadequate, we've actually, we need to find what is adequate. That's my interest. So thank you very much. I will just close with a brief prayer. Father, I just pray that my presentation, as imperfect and non-slick and non-smooth in places that it might be, I just pray if there's people here that encounter it, then this will be something that's spiritually enriching for them, and it's scientifically enriching for them, and it's philosophically enriching for them. Okay, so I think that I needed to get that out today. Just couldn't stay in. So I'm back to normal work pattern. So it may well be not until next weekend or before I can do another one, which is maybe why I needed to get it out sort of like quick. Okay, but I'm going to be. I'll just review anything else in the introduction. What else was there? Anything else I really want to sort of like to say before I try and dig in more specifically and develop things in more detail? But I think it's one of the most interesting sort of like videos. I feel that one, Why Study Philosophy, was a great personal testimony from my point of view, whereas this one, in a sense, is almost like an intellect in a sort of philosophical introduction to some of the very important themes which are in the thesis, and the importance of transcendental foundation of the Trinity. If you can resolve the problem of the particular and the universal, then you've got a justification for logic, for reason being reasonable. It allows you just a possibility. Kant's original question: what do I have to assume to have knowledge of anything? If we can answer that fundamental question, then you've got a basis to build your philosophy. Okay, so God bless.